So since my first video on the monitoring and control app, this thing has had a load of updates. And if you don't know what the Sony monitoring and control app is, it's basically a free wireless app that allows you to, ironically, monitor and control your Sony camera from an iPad or a phone completely wirelessly, and it's free. So what's not to like? If you haven't seen my first video, definitely go and check it out. You lot really enjoyed that, and it's going to give you a lot of understanding as to what this app is, the bare bones and all that. But it's had a couple of updates. So I thought, you know what, if you lot really enjoyed that video so much, I'll deliver the goods. And here we are, mate. So first of all, this thing, if you can't already tell, is a hell of a lot better when it comes to lag and when it comes to drop-in frames. We've obviously got our live view frames per second over here. This is my FX3, which if I hit record on right now, how you doing? You'll be able to see. So yeah, if I stop recording on that one, we can go over some of the new features that are in this app, because some of them I think are really good and that I'm definitely going to be using on certain sets, like when I'm doing interviews, doing different setups and whatnot. The first one, mate, playback. So let's hit roll on the FX3 and let's give it a couple of seconds so that I can actually record some content so that we can watch it back and see how good this playback is. I'm actually really surprised at how well it works, because I don't know how it transmits so well over to here in the amount of time that it does. Anyway, let's stop. Boom. The FX3 is obviously now stored that footage. It's not stored on the app. Let's go onto playback. Now you can see the playback is really basic. So I don't look too great there. And if you can tell, this is actually showing the S-Log footage. If you click up here, you've got all of the different clips that we can play back from. Obviously, we're just going to play back the one that we just shot. Now, if we give that a second, now it's come up. So you'll notice it does take a second. If we hit playback though, after 3 seconds, the playback is brilliant. Now, the interface and all that is so basic. Obviously, we can hit pause. It takes a second to kind of like catch itself. Press play, takes a second again. But when it actually plays back, it plays back brilliantly. That is crazy at how well it actually plays back. Now, it would be nice to be able to toggle on and off the LUT when we're playing back. So if I go back over into the camera mode, and as you can see, it takes a second to get back. Here, we're shooting S-Log 3, but if I go onto my look, so I can actually take on and off my LUT. So as you can see here, we've got all of our different LUTs. So we've got Rec 709, we've got 800%, 709. We've also got just standard S-Log 3 if you just don't want a LUT on at all, but I like to use an expose for my LUT. So if we go back, turn that LUT back on, as you can see, we'll hit record, but then when we stop recording and we play back, obviously it takes a second, but once it's there, you can see that we don't actually see and view that footage with the LUT on. But it plays back so well. It's just that jump between playback, selecting footage. If I go all the way back here, I'm pretty sure I've got some footage from a trip ages ago that I've done a shoot on, and it just plays back so smoothly. You know, obviously don't take no notice of the actual shot, but the footage itself plays back really nicely. Like, I'm really surprised, because this is actually going to be so beneficial on set. If you've got the client there, or if you're doing real storyboarded work and you just want to double check that shot instead of just looking at it on your camera monitor, say you've got like the DP, or you want to remotely shoot where you've got your camera operator going and doing their thing, and you're sat maybe in the green room or whatever fancy thing you want to be, if you're just sitting back while someone else is shooting for you, you can actually sit back, watch that footage on a really big monitor without a LUT on, which can be a bit annoying if you are going to be shooting S-Log 3, and it plays back really, really smoothly. You obviously go through all of your shots, and you can just see just how smooth this thing plays back. Now, the interface, it does take a second to obviously load the footage from the camera, but you would expect that. Obviously, it's not connected by a cable or anything like that. It's just doing it completely wirelessly, but the playback is brilliant. I'm really surprised at how well it plays back. It would be nice to see the LUT, maybe even the waveform in a future update, but overall, the playback is great. You can play back on the camera itself, and you can actually see the playback on the iPad. I'll quickly go and do that. So I'm playing back right now on the camera, and it plays back on the iPad. So if you do want to play back, I'm over here by the way, if you do want to play back remotely, you can do that, which could be handy if you're on set or in a studio or something like that and you've got clients about, and yeah, It's a new feature. Anyway, another update is that we've now got a tool in our new toolbox called focus mapping. Now, for those of you that don't know what focus mapping is essentially the same as peaking. It allows you to see where your focus is in the frame. Now, if you're not using autofocus, you're using like a manual lens, which we can talk about in a minute because I might sling a little anamorphic lens on this. If you're using manual focus on a lens, on a cinema lens, for example, and you don't really want to use peaking, we haven't actually got peaking on this app, but they've added focus mapping. So as you can see on the iPad, the area that you can see that isn't covered with a block color, that is where the focus point is, right? The blue area is a little bit out of focus. Them orange areas are really out of focus. And then if I bring my hand closer, oh God, it's focusing on my hand. Let me pull it away. That's better. Now, if you check out my hand, if I bring it really close, what I'm going to do is I'm going to emphasize this. Let me go over to the toolbox. Let's bring this transparency up. Right. Now you can see how that's working. The part of the frame that's clear, that hasn't got all the colors on it, that part of the map is sharp. The other parts, the blue is out of focus, and as we come to yellow and as we get to red, it's like, mate, this part of the frame, it ain't in focus. That is really, really out of focus. So this is essentially just another form of peaking. If you're shooting on manual focus lenses, let's say you're shooting at like f4, for example, on a set of cinema lenses, or even anamorphic lenses, which we'll talk about in a minute, because I'm going to whack an anamorphic lens on here so that we can see the Desqueeze feature. Then this is going to be a nice little tool for you to use. Is it going to be beneficial for everyone? Probably not. Not a lot of people are going to be using focus mapping. A lot of people like peaking. We haven't got peaking in this app. It would be really nice to see the peaking in this app. But something that is nice when it comes to the focus mapping is how transparent you can make it. So you can dip the transparency right down to zero. It's just another form of being able to focus, especially when you're using manual focus lenses, because if you're shooting on Sony lenses, you haven't really got anything to worry about because obviously the autofocus is just so sticky, and it's a very, very good autofocus system. Anyway, let's get rid of our focus mapping. Next up, another little feature is the fact that we've now got an iris bar, so we can actually scroll through our iris, because some people do like to do iris pulls. So you could have a scene where your subject is in the frame with a really blurry background, and then you bring up your aperture, you stop down, and then the background is now in focus, or you might just want to darken the scene with your iris. Quite a nice little feature. Another feature that's now been added is shutter angle for certain cameras. Now, not all of the cameras have all of these different features on them. Weirdly, some of them do, some of them don't. And also I've noticed that some of the cameras on the website, which I'll leave a link in the description so that you can just go and see if your camera don't work in real time, some of them say that they don't work on the actual website, and I've tested them and they do work. Like, for example, the A7C Mark II, which is literally this camera up here, that connects completely fine to the app. And also the Sony ZV-E10 Mark II, and it says that it doesn't on the website. Don't know why, but a lot more of the cameras do actually work, even though it says it doesn't on the website, on the iPad anyway. Check it out for yourselves, go on some forums, hopefully people can help out in the comments actually, do a bit of that because that'll help a lot of people out. But something else that's been added to the FX3, FX30, which a lot of people will be really happy about, myself included, is that you go onto the other settings and then you've now got shutter angle instead of just shutter speed. So we can actually change our shutter angle on the FX3, FX6, FX30 and the BURANO. It'd be really nice to have that in the A7 IV, but I know Sony probably don't want to stick it in them cameras for obvious reasons, that they just want to keep all of the filmmaking features for the obvious cinema line of cameras, but it would be lovely to see it in the A7 IV, A7C and whatnot. So that's a really nice feature that's also been added. Now, something that I didn't show in the last video was on the tools, we've obviously got all of these different tools. We've got waveforms, histograms, false color, zebras, focus mapping now, obviously in the update, Desqueeze, aspect markers, aspect safety zones, grid lines, and obviously our rotation. So if you want to rotate for, 16:9, 9:16, whatever you want to do, you can rotate it. But something that I didn't show you was Desqueeze, right? So if I come off of those, something that you notice in this thing is you can only have 3 of these selected at a time at the top. It would be nice to have all of them. I did say that last time. A new update on that would be great. Anyway, so if we go on Desqueeze, so I've now got the Desqueeze up there, I'm now going to stick an anamorphic lens on you over there, and I'm going to show you how the Desqueeze works if you don't already know, because a lot of people do. But anyway, let's get an anamorphic lens on this one. Boom. Right, so we now have a 55mm 2.9 anamorphic lens at 1.5 times squeeze. So, as you can see up here, this thing, I don't quite look right, do I? I kind of look like I'm all squished up. I kind of look like I've lost a bit of weight. And that's an anamorphic lens for you. Now, if you don't know how anamorphic lenses work, they essentially squeeze the frame. So when you de-squeeze them, the bokeh looks really juicy. So if I go over to our tools and then I go on anamorphic desqueeze, I can actually select the squeeze factor that I have on my anamorphic lens, because obviously anamorphic lenses come in like 1.3, 133, 1.5, 1.8, 2 times squeeze, and obviously the higher that value, the more anamorphic effects that you do get. I have got 1.5 times squeeze. So if I click on that, now on my desqueeze, if I desqueeze that, now I look right, because I didn't quite look right before, did I? So that's anamorphic lenses for you, mate, if you want to delve into that world, which I do actually really enjoy anamorphic lenses, and I've got a video coming up on anamorphic lenses as well. Anyway, the final update is the fact that you can now actually connect your camera to your device, like your iPad, your phone, and then use the wired connection, which is obviously going to give you a much more stable connection. So if I go over to connect, I'm going to disconnect. You can see I've actually got the A7C Mark II, which if you want a bit of inception, I'll see if I can quickly connect to that whilst I'm actually recording. Let's join. And it also gives you an idea of how quickly it connects as well. So weren't the worst shot in the world, was it? There you go. Wow, yeah, bit of inception, not too sure about that. And also I haven't got a LUT on as well, which is probably going to make it look really nasty. And it's all there. OCD's a little bit better. Anyway, let's disconnect from that as well. So obviously USB-C from your camera into your device. Not going to teach you how to suck eggs, that's pretty obvious. Then we go up to our pairing method and come off of Bluetooth pairing, click on USB. And as you can see, there's the FX3. Connect. Let's hit roll. How you doing, mate? I know this is a little bit close, so it might feel a little bit uncomfortable, and I'm not the best looking geezer, so it might be a little bit uncomfortable for you. And also, I've noticed, let me bang on my image stabilization if I'm doing a little bit of vlogging. That's a bit better. We don't want you lot being seasick, do we? Anyway, this is a much better way to use the monitoring and control app, and it almost completely obsoletes a lot of camera monitors, which is a little bit worrying. But if you can see on this top monitor, the quality out of this is so much better than the wireless connection, obviously, as you would expect. So this could be a deal breaker for a lot of people that wanted to use the app, but the connection wasn't quite there, especially in them long distances. You could get yourself like a 100-meter USB-C cable and then use whatever device you want. If you're doing like car tracking shots or car mounted shots, that could be a really good option because you've got a lot of things in the way. Or if you just want a much more stable connection in a studio or something like that, this could be a good option. So definitely a good update, especially for a completely free app. We've now unlocked so many different features now for our Sony cameras that we didn't have before. Obviously, not every feature works for every different camera, and it's updating all the time. And I don't want to tell you one thing and it, update the next week, and then, your camera all of a sudden does work. So make sure that your camera does work with the particular feature that you need, or just try it, mate. Pull out your Sony camera, get the monitor and control app, is free, and see what the crack is, mate. So because you guys enjoyed that first video so much, I thought, you know what, mate, let's do a little video on the updates. And they definitely are some welcome updates, especially that wired connection. I think that's like a deal breaker for a lot of people. That's definitely something that I'm going to be using now. It just saves you a lot of time. Your quality is much better, and obviously it's much less laggy, much more stable connection, and the playback is going to be a really big thing when I'm on a studio set or doing interviews and stuff like that. Anyway, you lot, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it helped you in some way or unlocked a new little feature for your Sony camera that you didn't realise that you had. And as always, mate, I'll be catching you lot in the next one, mate.